Plant can be broadly defined. Members of the kingdom Plantae are defined as photosynthetic eukaryotes. With very few exceptions, they are autotrophic and exhibit an alternation of generations. Major plant groups include algae, bryophytes, ferns and fern allies, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. Bryophytes lack vasculature and produce spores. Bryophytes, hornworts, liverworts, and mosses are simple land plants that resemble the first plants to colonize land. The gametophyte generation is dominant and represented by a green photosynthetic organ called a thallus. Bryophytes that lack vasculature do not produce seeds or fruit. They reproduce via ferns and fern allies are seedless tracheophytes. Ferns, including club mosses and horsetails, are vascular plants that do not produce seeds, flowers, or fruit. Photosynthesis takes place in the stem, in microphyles, or in megaphylls. Reproduction is via spores in the sporophyte too. Generation is dominant. Gymnosperms are seed-producing tracheophytes that lack flowers and fruit. The four groups of gymnosperms, ginkgo, nutophytes, cycads, and conifers, are seed-producing vascular plants, but they lack flowers and fruit. The sporophyte too. Generation is dominant. Photosynthesis is in the leaves, which may be needle or scale-like. Conifers, the largest gymnosperm group, produce their seeds in cones, are typically evergreen, and have needle or scale-shaped leaves. Monocots and eudicots are the two largest groups of angiosperms. Angiosperms, roughly divided into the monocots, and the eudicots, are the dominant and most diverse group of modern plants. Monocots and eudicots have vasculature, flowers, seeds, and fruit, but differ from each other in many ways, including leaf venation, numbers of floral parts, and basic anatomy. The sporophyte too. Generation is dominant. Photosynthesis may be in the stem or leaf. A brief comparison of various plant taxa. While dozens or even hundreds of individual characters are used in plant systematics, only 4 have been used here. Ploidy level of the dominant life cycle stage. Diploid vs haploid, and the presence or absence of vasculature, seed, and fruit. The total number of named plant species is approximately 364,000, although by some estimates there may be as many as 2 million diatom species alone, most undiscovered and unnamed. Earth's history is divided into 4 major time periods. Earth's history has been divided into the Precambrian, 4,550 to 542 million year ago, the Paleozoic era, 542 to 251 million year ago, the Mesozoic era, 251 to 66 million year ago, and the Cenozoic era, 66 million year ago to present. Earth is approximately 4.55 billion years old. If expressed as a month-long calendar, life appeared on day 8, cyanobacteria on day 10, eukaryotic cells on day 24, land plants on day 28, gymnosperms on day 29, and angiosperms on the afternoon of day 30. Life on Earth has experienced 5 mass extinctions. A sixth is in progress. Natural disasters such as climate change or meteor impact lead to 5 major extinctions. In Earth's history, human activity is currently driving a 6th mass extinction. Anthropogenic habitat destruction, and global climate change are the major drivers in this mass extinction. Many plants and animals have co-evolved. Coevolution occurs when the evolution of one species influences that of another. Many plant reproductive strategies have co-evolved with animals and involved rewards of food, shelter, ovipositories, or pheromones. The relationship may be general or species-specific. Introduction. Plants possess unique properties that distinguish them from all other living things. The green plants comprise a very diverse group of organisms from algae to bryophytes, gymnosperms, and angiosperms that are considered true plants. On a cellular level, the vast majority of plants contain the pigment chlorophyll and are the primary producers on planet Earth, on land, and in water. These organisms have life cycles that encompass an alternation of generations, from a haploid generation to one that is diploid. The complexity associated with these groups can be attributed to the evolution of land plants from ancestral ties to the blue-green algae, cyanobacteria, and algae, eukaryotes. In this text, we are primarily going to focus on the properties of seed plants, particularly flowering plants, in the study of plant anatomy, i.e., the microscopic study of cells, tissues, and organs. As such, we must come to the recognition that while it is possible to make general statements about their distinguishing characteristics, there are, from time to time, exceptions that do not fit the rules. Nevertheless, the rules are usually accurate, and the collective set of rules certainly states notable properties. We begins by introducing basic concepts associated with plants to set the stage for learning about the anatomy of land plants. Plants have multiple pigments with multiple functions. Plants possess a unique set of pigments. Among the pigments, the light-trapping chlorophylls, e.g., chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B, are typically widespread in foliar structures and young stems. The ability of such green pigmented plants to trap light and to utilize it in the production of carbohydrates, simple sugars in particular, makes them photoautotrophs. That is, they are capable of synthesizing their own food in the presence of light, requiring only water, minerals, and air from their natural surroundings to survive. This property separates the green plants from heterotrophs, which require an external source of carbon-based food materials for survival. Practically all life on the planet Earth is dependent, either directly or indirectly, on the photosynthesis produced by green plants. Additionally, plants use other pigments such as anthocyanins, carotenoids, phytochrome, and cryptochrome. The different colors of light the pigments absorb may attract fruit dispersers and guide pollinators. The pigments may also determine the direction, brightness, and color of light, as well as track the time of day and the season of the year. For instance, the pigment phytochrome is used to measure the length of the dark period, i.e., night time, and that information is retained for several days. If last night was longer than the night before, that indicates to the plant that autumn is approaching, shortening days. If last night was shorter than the night before, then spring is nearing. This information is used by many plants to indicate flowering time. Plants use water and the properties of water in unique ways. All life forms, including plants, need water to survive. Indeed, most living organisms are 80 to 90% water. Plants, however, are unique in their use of water as a hydraulic tool. Lacking force, contractile muscle cells, plants have evolved to take advantage of the physical properties of water and the laws of physics to generate force that drives the circulatory system, growth, and movement. As water evaporates from a leaf via a process called transpiration, that water is replaced by water in the petiole, which pulls water from the stem, in turn from the roots and eventually the soil. Thus, water is pulled from the soil to the atmosphere, much like soda is sucked up by a straw. The difference in the available energy held by the water in the soil, versus that of the water in the air, is sufficient to pull water to the top of a 100 m tall tree. Via the xylem tissue, the water-conducting cells in the xylem tissue are not merely tubes through which water flows. Their structure and design facilitates and controls the several hundred gallons of water that move through a medium-sized tree on a typical summer day. Hydraulics is defined as the use of a fluid, water in this case, to perform work. by the physiological manipulation of solute concentrations in selected cells and using the adjustable properties of cell walls, plants can generate the force needed to drive cell expansion, growth, and directed movement. Pressures well in excess of 200 psi. Our common automobile tires are typically 32 to 34 psi allow stomator to open and close and plant roots to split rocks and crack concrete sidewalks. Insectivorous plants close their traps on their unsuspecting meals by rapid water movements. Venus flytraps close in about 1/10 of a second. While animals use muscle cells to contract and pull, plants use water to expand and push. Plants use anabolic metabolism to manufacture every molecule needed for growth and produce virtually no waste. Plants are photoautotrophic, meaning they use the energy of sun light to manufacture their own food. What is often not as well organized is that, in addition to making the carbohydrates to supply basic energy and structural needs, plants make 100% of the amino acids, proteins, lipids, nucleic acids, vitamins, and other biomolecules they need for growth and development. Most plants need light, water, and approximately 20 elements to manufacture them. Cells, and most of that anabolic machinery is in the plastids. Plants are literally rooted in one place and therefore are easy prey for herbivores. To protect themselves, plants have evolved biosynthetic pathways that synthesize a veritable cornucopia of toxic compounds, many of which are used by humans as flavorings, spices, herbals, dyes, preservatives, medicines, and recreational drugs. The course of history has been shaped by these compounds, which are called plant secondary metabolites. Plant organs are initially made of three tissues. All plant organs have an epidermis produced by a meristem called the protoderm, a vascular system produced by the procambium, and a filling tissue produced by the ground meristem. Plant organs are initially made of three tissues. All plant organs have an epidermis produced by a meristem called the protoderm, a vascular system produced by the procambium, and a filling tissue produced by the ground meristem. Primary and secondary are important concepts in plant anatomy. These terms are used in multiple, and sometimes confusing, ways to describe such things as plant growth. Meristems, xylem, phloem, and cell walls. The plant body consists of 4 organs. The 4 plant organs and their basic functions are the root, anchorage, storage, and water uptake, stem, support, storage, leaf, photosynthesis, and flower, fruit, reproduction, seed dispersal. Each has a unique characteristic anatomy. They are interconnected by a vascular system consisting of xylem and phloem. Roots anchor the plant in the soil and supply the shoot with water and minerals absorbed from the soil. They also rely on materials produced by photosynthesis in the leaves and shoot. An extensive vascular system connects the roots with all parts of the shoot, leaves, and flowers. Roots are resource acquisition organs for water and minerals and carbon utilization. Organs, heterotrophic. Eudicots and monocots have distinctly different root system architectures. The taproot system of a dandelion plant is shown. In being a eudicot, the taproot developed from the embryonic root, radicle, in the seed, and all branching lateral roots developed from the taproot, shows a fibrous root system of onion, a monocot plant. All of the fibrous roots shown and have developed from stem tissue. In monocots, the main root, the stem, supports the aerial portions of the plant, namely, the leaves and flowers. One of the main resources plants need for survival. Light is obviously only present above ground. Therefore, a major role for the stem is to support the leaves and distribute them in space to maximize light absorption. Phyllotaxis is the specific, genetically controlled, non-random arrangement of Leaves on a stem. A second resource stems acquire for a plant is access to pollinators, such as wind, insects, birds, or mammals. Thus, the stem presents the flowers in space to maximize pollination success. Stems are resource utilization organs, water, minerals, and light and carbon acquisition organs, autotrophic. Leaves are the photosynthetic organs of the plant. Their morphology and anatomy have been adapted over evolutionary time to optimize light absorption and carbon dioxide uptake. A typical plant leaf is seen in figure. It is essentially flat to optimize solar absorption, green, due to tens of thousands of chloroplasts, and slightly transparent. Some light penetrates each leaf to supply energy to those lower in the canopy. Flowers and fruit. Most plants reproduce sexually. However, only angiosperms do so with the use of flowers and fruit. The flowers role is to ensure successful pollination by being exposed to wind or attractive to an animal pollinator. The fruit is responsible for seed dispersal on the wind, in the water, stuck to an animal, or otherwise. Stamens produce pollen grains containing the male gamete. Flowers contain one or more ovaries, which house egg cells, female gametes within ovules. The pure flower, shown in figure, has multiple stamens and an ovary containing multiple ovules. Other species, such as corn, have flowers with exclusively male or female parts. Petals, often showy and brightly colored, are responsible for pollinator attraction, while the sepals wrap around and protect the young floral bud from insects and desiccation prior to flowering. Pollination is the process of transferring pollen grains to the stigma, where they germinate and send a pollen tube through the style to the ovary. Sperm cells are transferred from the pollen grain via the pollen tube to the ovary, where they fertilize the ovule. Upon successful fertilization, the petals often die and fall off, their job being done. Now the ovary enlarges and develops into the fruit. In the case of pear, the true fruit is what we call the core, which is usually discarded. The sweet, fleshy part of a pear which we eat is actually the expanded receptacle or base upon which the flower is mounted. Hence, pear is called an accessory fruit. Fruits disperse seeds through space. Dormancy disperses seeds through time. Because animals are mobile, their offspring can, and typically must, disperse to new territory. Plants are usually considered to be sessile, or fixed in one place, and capable of movement. However, they too must disperse the next generation to access new territory and prevent overcrowding. In angiosperms, this is the job of the fruit. Fruits are usually thought of as being tasty and sweet. However, to a botanist, a fruit is the tissue surrounding the seed that is derived, usually, from the wall of the ovary. In broad terms, anything with a seed is a fruit. Thus, true botanical fruit can be hard, soft, fibrous, winged, or even in some cases, sweet and edible. The fruit is the unit of seed dispersal, allowing plants to distribute their offspring over a wide geographic area. In addition, and unlike most animals, the plant embryo can stay dormant for extended periods of time, allowing dispersal of the next generation through time. The record is held by 32,000-year-old Campion, Celine sp. seeds recovered from the Siberian permafrost. In 2007, scientists surgically removed the embryos from the seeds and were able to culture them to become mature, adult, seed-bearing plants. In terms of viable, intact seeds, a 2,000-year-old date palm seed recovered from Herod's palace in Israel was germinated and grown to a mature plant in 2005.
The plant life cycle alternates between a haploid gametophyte stage and a diploid sporophyte stage. In plant sexual reproduction, gametophyte produce haploid male sperm and female egg gamete. Fertilization unites the two gametes from a diploid zygote, which develops into the mature sporophyte via mitosis. Using meiosis, the sporophyte produce haploid spores that germinate and become the gametophytic stage.
Concept assessment. Complete the crossword puzzle with the most appropriate term. Across. 3. Leaves thought to have evolved from lateral branching systems. 8. Vascular system of stems arranged in a ring. 10. Self-feeder. 11. Growth that leads to formation of new organs. 12. Modern day era. 14. This generation gives rise to haploid spores. 15. This generation can produce gametes via mitosis. 16. Two species evolving in response to one another. Down. 1. Rapidly growing part of plant containing undifferentiated cells. 2. Important for the dispersal of angiosperm seeds. 4. This type of growth allows for the development of wood. 5. Reflects light at certain wavelengths. 6. Floral structures in trees and leaves with parallel venation. 7. Porous substance found within cell walls. 9. Pigment important in photosynthesis. 13. Obtains nutrients and energy from other organisms.